Hey y'all, this is AL Thick Madame and Cinnamon Sugar, and this is the recap review for Queen Sugar. So the episode started out with Ralph Angel and Micah getting back to the house, and they see True and Darla. Everybody rode the storm out. They came out all right, and so of course she wants to know how the house held up. How did they hold up? Was it cold? Being the typical, worried, caring, nurturing person that she is. And so he was like, yeah, everything is fine. And Micah is like pretty much in the middle of wanting to tell her that the guy who raped her was there. And so, of course, Ralph Angel, I said Mike Angel, excuse me. Ralph Angel ended up cutting him off and was like, everything was fine. And then he ended up getting a phone call. Cordell, who was the man whose name I never usually can remember, the man who always got an attitude, who always don't want to side with nobody. He always want to be the one who's going to give some pushback when it comes to stuff dealing with the farms and all of that, especially now that everybody is a part of the co-op. He called and was like, my farm is flooding. So he got off the phone. Ralph Angel told everybody that everything is flooding, that they need to get over there right now. So everybody who's a part of the co-op that made it over there, they had to hustle. They trying to create sandbags to try to hold the water off. Like, it's just too much going on. Now, Ralph Angel has a lot of pent up frustration because he did not beat down and kill Chase, right? So Micah is literally the only person currently that knows what's going on. So he's like, Uncle Ra, are you okay? Are you all right? What's going on? Now, before he starts like divvying out the tasks that everybody need to do, um, well, really, he was in the middle of divvying out tasks. And so Darla is continuously trying to break away. Now, before they even left the house, she was like, okay. Well, we need to break up and go in two cars. I need to go over to the mill and y'all go handle that. And so he was like, no, we need to stay together. Again, situation, he's not telling her that he know about the situation, and she's being secretive and still hasn't told him that he been reaching out. So she's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. So at this point, they just going together. Okay, so now they done made it to Cardell's, or however you pronounce the man's name, his farmland. And so Darla is taking every initiative to go and break away so that she can go do something that she would be free of Ralph Angel. You know what I'm saying? He basically would not be able to have eyes on her. So he was like, oh, no. We need to stick together. We need to stick together. And basically told his Aunt Vi that she need to keep her eyes on Darla. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And like Darla, it's like she looking like, okay. So Violet is gonna go over to her place and whip up some food because everybody's gonna need something to eat by the time they done doing this, because it is really gonna be hard work. I don't know if y'all ever done any of that type of stuff before. Any type of farm work, if you ain't never pulled up nothing that has been planted, if you have never tilled the land, like, and I ain't talking about like a little bitty box garden and all that stuff. Literally, y'all don't understand. I already told y'all, for those of y'all who've been around, y'all already know I'm a country girl and grew up around pastures and all that stuff surrounding our house. My grandmother had all kinds of farmland. We had cane. We used to have to go through there and get the cane during a certain time of the year. We used to have to go after my daddy would till up the land. He would like had this particular part that he had on his tractor that basically pulls up the sweet potatoes and loosens them up from the ground. We would have to go through all these rows and pull the sweet potatoes up, get them and put them in buckets, because it's, you can't let them just sit in the ground. They got to do what they got to do. So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of stuff. My grandmama had her own personal garden where she had collard greens. Not collard greens. She had turnip greens. I don't like turnip greens, even though turnips are, I think turnip greens are alkaline. I prefer collards, but they're not. Anyway, we ain't gonna go into that. So yeah, if you ain't about that life, you don't understand how hard it is. And I've done other little labor intensive things like what he was doing, which is they were filling up sandbags. This wasn't no situation where the sandbags were already filled. No, you got to get the bag, have somebody hold the bag. You got to shovel the dirt in the bag, and somebody got to tie the bag up, and then proceed to put it somewhere so that it can be put in a wheelbarrow or however you're going to transport it to the next location. They got to do what they got to do to hurry along to make sure all this stuff is what it need to be so that Cordell's farm does not end up flooding over. So tell me why Violet is at her place of employment. You know, she's at her own business. She get a phone call and somebody on the phone talking about Jimmy Dale had her down as the emergency contact and he's in hospice. And I was just like, if you don't get, I promise, listen. I am not evil. I am one of the most giving people. You know what I'm saying? Even when the side heifer tries me, I still help her. I still do what I'm supposed to do. Even though the other side of me that she be trying to pull out of me be wanting to slap fire at her. I'm just saying. I just cannot be what people are doing to me. I'll just ignore you. And sometimes I just do the bare minimum, but I'm still not going to completely like be evil or whatever to you like you're being to me. The person is talking about he had you down as your emergency contact, he in hospice. And I'm like, child, sir, if you don't get out of here, like, in all honesty, he might have done that and was well within the sanity realm when he did it. Or it was a situation where he has had her down for forever and he has been stubborn and said, I'm not changing it, or he completely forgot. And it was just out there. It just is what it is. Child, if you don't get out of here, I was like, nope, no. So anyway, back to Ralph Angel. Ralph Angel filling up these bags. He filling them up so rough, like every single angry feeling that he is feeling, it is going into how he is putting it into the sandbags. His nephew trying to calm him down, trying to talk to him. He done sat up here and filled up a wheelbarrow, and he over here snatching and grabbing on it. He barely can even pull it. I'm like, you finna pull a muscle in your back, your groin, and everywhere else the way you pulling the wheelbarrow, you ain't even pulling it right. Like, if you have never maneuvered a wheelbarrow, especially when it is filled with something, there's a certain way you have to lift it up so that it can start to roll. He was so frustrated. He lifted it up the wrong way initially. I was like, you ain't even lifting it up right. That's how mad he is. I was like, oh, Lord, the frustration. He got to calm down on the frustration, Lord. It's too much. I understand it, but it's too much. So tell me why, back at the diner, everybody's there now. Nova's there. Billy's there. And Darla is there. And so Billy and Nova are talking, and she just wanted to know like what she had going on with her, how is she feeling. And so Nova began to tell her that Calvin showed up and how the conversation went and all of that. And so she was just like, wow, I'm glad you were able to get that closure and that you were able to be mature about the situation, because we all know how Nova can be. She'll see somebody from her past and then it's time to cheat. It's time to do the most. It is what it is. So then we start getting into Billy's business. So she trying to figure out, what happened as far as, her riding out the storm. So we know that she went over to her daddy's house to stay with her soon-to-be stepmom, Sandy. And they had a good conversation. They ended up having a great, meeting of the minds, all that stuff. They had a great time. But she ended up falling asleep on the couch with old boy who was over there to help with the generator or whatever. And so she was just like, it wasn't like that. We were up talking. It was really, really nice. And we just had a, good time. But she was saying that, despite the fact that she's been dating and all this other stuff, she just thinks of Vince, her husband, more and more. And so Nova was like, that's showing that, you're going through the process. Like, let the process work for you. And I'm like, I know that's right. So tell me why Violet rolled up and she was like, so yeah, I need to talk to you, Billy. And so Nova was even looking like, wait a minute, what this about? Like, you pulling her off to the side? What the word are you talking about? Like, that's the look she was giving, right? So she went and took her to a booth and she was like, what I need to talk to you about is about Jimmy Dale. Man, as soon as she said that man's name, Darla was like, what did you talk to her about him for? What is going on here? What you talking about? And Nova was even saying the same thing too. Ended up saying, look, he had me as his emergency contact. And people called me. I ain't got nothing to do with that. I done said my piece to him. And we saw that season. She had to set it off real quick and shut him all the way up. I was like, yes, Lord. Oh, I cannot stand him in this role. I love David Allen Greer, but woo, child, I hate when certain people that I live for end up getting in roles like this. It just do something to me. I'm just like, I never knew you could be evil. I never knew you could play this evil person. Like, Lord, I ain't never seen him play nothing like this before. To where it disturbed my nerves like that. Just like the man who was on Green, what is it called? Green, whatever the name of that show was with the pastors and things. Green something, Greenleaf. Just like Greenleaf. The man that played the uncle, man, I ain't never seen him play nothing evil like that. When I tell you, I was like, wait a minute. And then, like, my mama, she had never seen the show before. And then when it went all the way off, she ended up getting all the seasons. And she was like, I see what you're talking about. I told my mama, because I was watching it from week to week. That's how good it was. I was like, I do not have time for this. This man was tearing my nerves up. I was like, for you to disturb my soul when you are completely acting, I don't have time for this. So anyway, that's how I feel about the man who played Jimmy Dale, who is David Allen Greer. Live for him. So anyway, everybody trying to figure out what you talking about Jimmy Dale for? What you talking about? Ended up saying same information that she found out, which is that he has her down as his emergency contact. But she already said everything she needed to say. She don't know why he got her down as the emergency contact still, because I've been done with him. Like, I don't know what he got going on, whatever. But I've said my piece. And I don't know if you would get the same release and peace that I did when I had my hashing out situation with him. But if it's up to you, you need to go and talk to him, because he ain't got much longer to live. This man might die like tomorrow. They say they expect him to die like within the next 24 hours or something like that, child. I was like, well, shoot, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I was so sick and tired of him, I thought he had been died. Like, he already was going through. The last time we saw him, I thought he had died. Like, I don't know. I think in my mind, I was like, ooh, he ain't gonna live too much longer. Some people are, as my mama always used to say when I was growing up, you're too loose to live and ain't fit to die. It's just some people who are just so evil. It's just like, I just can't. So anyway, so Billy is kind of trying to process it and see if that's what she need to do. Darla is having a moment where this is speaking to her soul too, because she needs to face Chase head on. Ain't told her husband about this foolishness. She over here having panic attacks, about to go into a whole relapse and some more. Like, you about to fall off the wagon because this man calling you. You haven't fully faced your past, and you need to. So she done left out the room, right? So eventually Violet was like, all right, wait a minute, let me see what's going on. She went in the little kitchen prep area or whatever. See her in there, she in there trying to breathe. She's trying to figure out what's wrong with this heifer that set it off. And so she ended up telling her what the situation was and was like, I ain't told my husband. I need to tell him. This is going to kill him. I don't know how he going to react. And so she was like, look, baby, you don't have to do anything. And she just feels like now the freedom for her might come from her doing the same thing Violet did. And so she's trying to explain to her, like, maybe you don't need to do this, because I feel like Violet felt the need to tell her that you might not need to do this, because in her situation, if she faces him, and as we've already discussed before, look at the way that Chase was talking in that room with complete strangers. You didn't even know him. You didn't know who you was talking to, and you were big and bold, and you just felt like, we all men here. I can talk like this. I'm a dog, and I was doing the most, and I got away with it. This Me Too thing. I wouldn't want to slap him through the screen, y'all. I cannot. This is delicious, y'all. I'm so sorry. Excuse me. But Violet had to let her know this might not be the freedom that you think you're going to get. You might not get your freedom from facing him. And so she's going to have to figure out what she want to do. But she is going to definitely have to tell Ralph Angel. So then we end up seeing Cardell addressing the entire co-op. And he was like, I know I've been difficult. I always give y'all pushback. And it's sad that it took me going through this situation where my farm was being flooded. Y'all came together quickly, without hesitation, no pushback, and came to help with the quickness. Y'all set it off. And it's sad that it took this situation for me to finally see what y'all have been doing this entire time. So now he sees it, and he was like, you know what? You're a borderline. You ain't even got your farm no more. And you still set it off. You was one of the, you the one who been coordinating all this stuff. It's because of you. I'm proud to call you my friend. You a borderline. That said it all. So anyway, everybody is about to head over to Vi's Pies and get them something to eat. So the guy who Billy is like having a little moment with or whatever, he saw Joaquin and was like, hey, I've been meaning to ask you how your pop's been doing, what you got going on, whatever. And so, Joaquin was like, kind of tried to play it off and, went on by his business, gave the man a little pound, went on by his business. So then we saw Hollywood then talk to that same man. He was like, oh, I saw you talking to Joaquin. And he was just like, yeah, I was talking to him about his dad. And he was like, yeah, these kids are going through a lot of stuff. They're seeing a lot of stuff. They had it worse than we ever did. Y'all don't understand how happy it makes me that somebody like Hollywood who don't have the first baby, he ain't never had the first child, but the instincts that he has as a father, it allows him to step in and do the things that he already know need to be done without being asked or having been taught or having to be told. But it's a lot of these raggedy people out here who have impregnated people or who have gotten pregnant and don't say boo to their children, don't do nothing for their children, and then be having the audacity to be like, but I'm a mother, I have kids. They love trying to holler that anybody can give birth. Anybody can shoot the club up. But are you a real father? Real fathers, real men, real moms stand up. I'm here for that. I'm here for real parents. Not these people who just get pregnant or get somebody pregnant and think that because they've done that, they are now a father or a mother, because that's not what it is. Anyway. So, Billy, I think she does plan on talking to Jimmy Dale. So she's talking to Nova about it. And the fact that she was just like, he was her first supporter of her dream to become a lawyer and all this other stuff. Like, he used to call her like little names and stuff. Little Billy D Esquire, because her name is Billy, or whatever. And so he used to give her that little name. And so she used to feel so good about it. So he really was trying her. He was setting her up. He was basically grooming her, I guess. He was doing all of that because it was his way of getting in good with her, making her feel comfortable. So when he came in for the kill, she never see it coming. And that's so sad. I swear I can't stand stuff like that. That's what my uncle would do. My uncle would do little stuff like that. He'd be like, hey, how you doing? And it's like, I feel like in my situation, when I would get molested by my uncle, I got, for those of y'all who are new here and don't know my story, I did post it on my page like a year or two or however long ago, maybe 3 years ago now, when I had been molested by an uncle. And so my uncle started molesting me when I was like 11 years old or 12 years old, and it went on for a year. And one day when it was about to go to the next level, something made me get up and run out of the room. And I went out of that room and I went and told his wife, who is my aunt, and my mama, which is her sister. They are best friends, even though they are sisters. They talk literally every single day, several times a day. And it's always been that way since I had been able to comprehend that my mom was on the phone with my aunt. So, yeah. And he died like 6 months after that. And I had a sense of relief. But that ended up scarring me. They ended up scarring me in a way I would have never imagined. And after I ended up seeking out therapy, that is when I then realized how deeply rooted so many of the different ways that I am, the way that I handle a lot of stuff, excuse me, y'all. The way that I handle a lot of stuff, it is because of what I went through. When I experienced rape twice, and when I got molested, and then, on top of that, I'm in school, I'm getting bullied at school. So it's like, dang, I can't catch a break nowhere. So it was just too much I was going through. So I fully understand this moment that is being illustrated. And that's why when I see stuff like this, shows like this, like every aspect of this show, outside of Micah's sexuality, I pretty much resonate 100% with all of it. So anyway, sorry, y'all know how I do. So with this situation, since Billy doesn't know how to really go about it, Nova told her, like, act as if I'm Jimmy Dale, and say what you would say to him. And she went off. Said everything that she would want to say. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, like he really took her innocence away. Really had the entire parish thinking that she was out here like that, like she was for the streets when it was him. I don't be understanding why people do that. And I hate it because that's why I am not here for most of these people who stayed in loveless trash marriages and situations and had babies by these raggedy men who had kids all over town. And they will sit up there and tell you, well, just stay with them. Just stay with them, because they would stand up. Because they would not stand up. Most of these people been married 20, 30, 40 years, and it was only because it was out of convenience for them. They never had a trade. They never had a skill. And they were like, well, the bills are being paid at this house. I decided up here and got pregnant by him. I pretty much know he out here in these streets, whether I have evidence or not. It is what it is. That's pretty much the way that they go about it in life, and I ain't here for that. So anyway, y'all, I just can't. So back at Vi's Pies, the people have come over and they're eating. And so Darla's looking for Ralph Angel because prior to that moment, it got to a point where Darla wanted to know where he was, and she trying to figure out where he at. And he was like, I'm not supposed to tell you this. Went off to the side and told her about Chase being there and all this other stuff. She's immediately like, oh my gosh, like, wait a minute. Let me find my husband. So she tried to call him. The cell towers are still down. So obviously she's going into panic mode because we don't know what he finna do. He got one more strike and it's a wrap for him. So even though he seems to have grown as a man, the fact that he told him, had I not been there to stop him, I think he might have killed him. Come on now. We don't know what he finna be capable of in this moment. He done disappeared. He ain't come back there to eat. So right now it's like, he might be about to try to meet up with this man to kill him now to go finish the job, because it's like he does not want this man to come out of nowhere and take their son away, because he pretty much, whether he wants to believe it or not, he has the best chance of being the father. He pretty much is the father. From what Ralph Angel said in the last episode, he said that man looked exactly like Blue. He said that man Blue looks exactly like that man. So that is his father. Now, even though Darla knows that this man don't want nothing to do with this child, he ain't got no idea as to whether or not what this man gonna try to do. He might try to come out of nowhere and be like, yeah, I want custody again. Darla is tired of her spirit. She like, yeah, let me get your keys. Because in her mind, she was like, wait a minute. She done told Hollywood, let me get your keys. Then it got to the point where it was just like, look, nah, ain't nobody got time for this. The man who raped her is here, and we gotta find Ralph Angel because we don't know where he at. So I think that Hollywood ended up driving her around to places where she think he might be at, because like we said, nothing is available. We don't know where he at. So they went to the house. He's not at the house. You know what I'm saying? The Bordelon home. Trying to figure out where he at. And so then she still can't get through. So trying to figure out where he at. And so she feels some type of way. And he's trying to figure out, like, where else could he be? And so she was like, I have nothing else that I can tell you. Like, all he does is go to work. He provides for us. He loves us. His life is us. So I can't even tell you. I can't even begin to tell you where else he could be. So she feels some type of way, and she doesn't feel like she's enough, and maybe it needs to be over with, and maybe he needs to just be done with her, and they never should have been together like that. And so Hollywood is trying to convince her to think otherwise, and that she needs to think better of herself, because no, you're not damaged. No, you're not these things. He told her straight up, outside of Ralph Angel, I feel like in this family, I know you better than anybody. Like I said, outside of Ralph Angel. When I saw you at your lowest. You done came up out of that. Like the way she fought to get up out of that, it's like, girl, if you don't get up out of here. She just feels as though she's not worthy of anything now. It's too much going on. Don't want to put him through this. And she just feels like she can't outrun her past. And it's terrible, and she just feels like it's just going to keep coming, and she don't know what's going on. So eventually, she's informed that Ralph Angel is at the pool. I done forgot if I told y'all before or not, but he's trying to learn how to swim, and she was teaching him. And so he just went there, and he's just sitting there. So now she was like, can we talk about, everything now? And so he was like, yeah, I guess we ain't got no choice. So they both revealed that they know about Chase. And so he over here livid because she's known about it and has been having contact with him, unwanted contact with him for the last few weeks. And so he in his feelings, and he gonna have to nip this in the bud. It's too much. He feels some type of way. He on the verge of crying. I hate when his eyes water up, y'all. I hate it. I hate it. Mm-mm. He said in this moment to her that if it wasn't for Micah, would have killed that man. And he looked at that man, and that man looked just like his son. I said, oh my gosh. And he said he ain't gonna lie to her. He pretty much wish he did. And if he hadn't been there, he probably would have. And so now she feels guilty, saying that she shouldn't have said anything, and she didn't think he was gonna come there, and that even though she believes that that man, she didn't think he was gonna come there and all of that, but she should have told him, and that it's a situation where she regrets not saying anything, but she just doesn't think he's gonna try nothing. And I'm like, girl, he don't care nothing about that. He love Blue. He don't want to sit up here and look like a fool over here living for a child. This man out here, he has all sorts of rights to that child, so to speak. And so it's like, come on now. So he's upset. He's very, very upset and set it off. And she was like, look, the rage that you feel from what you experienced last night when dealing with him, I have had that rage for years. And I'm like, girl, I hear you, but you got to come correct. You should have said something to him. That man was set up. So anyway, Billy and Nova are at the house and they talking. And so we get to talking about her ex. And so she was like, well, since you already exercising your demons and you did so well with Calvin, maybe you should resolve, what you might have had going on with your first love, which was this woman named Camille. I love the woman who plays Camille. Oh my gosh. I love her in every single thing I've ever seen her in. I need to watch Rent again, because when I saw Rent initially, I feel like I didn't appreciate it for what it was. It was good, but I just feel like I didn't take it in the way that I should have. That's the first thing that I really distinctly remember seeing her in, where I really paid attention to her. But even though I think I've seen her before that, but she's in 911, Station 19. I be getting my life every time. But anyway, so she's thinking about it, and you can tell, and I'm like, ooh, like her reaction just talking about it. It's a situation where I'm like, girl, if you go see her, you might fall in love. If she ain't got nobody, I don't know. Dominic, your man, he might not be safe for him. So she thinking about it, and I think she actually is gonna go and roll up to where her father had this business, and if she's still around, she should be able to see her at the father's business. So Micah is at home and he's going over pictures and things, and then that guy ends up reaching out to him, and he was like, hey, you know what I'm saying, you need to hang out, we need to do this, we got investors, you need to send us some more stuff and whatever. And so he's looking at the pictures that he took, because when that co-op situation happened and Ralph Angel was making a speech after Cordell was making a speech, so to speak. Well, Cordell was making a speech. Cardell, or however he pronounced his name. He was making a speech thanking everybody for showing up and all that stuff. He actually took pictures. Ralph Angel actually assigned him to take pictures of everything as a way to, for insurance purposes. So he was taking pictures of the moment, and he was taking pictures of the damage that was happening. Child, Violet and them at the house, they about to eat. Tell me why Joaquin and them daddy done rolled up. I was like, oh my gosh. So he's happy to see them. Of course, the kids are happy to see them. And they eating, have enough food for everybody, of course. And so they talking. And so he has been put up for like the next couple of weeks or next couple of months. And so they're going to leave. And in this moment after they leave, this is when they realize how empty their lives will be without them. And Violet is very upset. Hollywood is very upset. I'm just like, oh my gosh. So Nova ended up rolling up and seeing the ex, talking to her, and she was like, look, your daddy rolled up on me, gave me your number, all this stuff, but I never reached out to you. And so she was like, my daddy gave you my number? Oh my gosh. So like she is like stuck. And you know how a lot of people are. Like I can only imagine how one of her parents probably was when it came to her possible sexuality. Ain't no telling. So the fact that her daddy was like, look, here go Nova number, you need to hit her up. And she never did for whatever reason. So since this is not the place or the time, you know what I'm saying, they want to actually have a good sit down and talk. So they gave each other their numbers. And so Nova was like, are you planning on using my number this time? And she was like, yes. And so Nova got in her car and had a moment where she was talking to her daddy, like, Daddy, you gave her my number? You gave her my number? I can't believe it. I'm like, yeah. But part of me feel like, woo, child, I don't know. She might end up with the ex. I don't know. Child, we at the end of the episode. I know it's been a long run. Just the end of the episode. And so Darla is at Hollywood and Vi's home. No. I think that this environment that I'm looking at is the real spot. And so Chase come in there. He sees Darla standing there. So he walk in all cocky. He was like, yeah, I'm glad to see you. Glad you wanted to meet up or whatever. Ralph Angel rolled up out the shadows. Jesus. I was like, wait. Woo, child. This whole scene. I can't. Wait a minute. I got to take a sip. Wait a minute. I got to get my life together. This is so good. Wait a minute. Let me get the rest of it because this was a lot. This was a lot, child. I gotta get this cinnamon. Gotta get it, y'all. Excuse me. So anyway, Ralph Angel rolled up out the shadows. Hollywood rolled up out the back. Violet rolled up out the back. I was like, wait a minute. Everybody rolled up. Everybody said that was. And so Ralph Angel wanted him to get up out of there. Darla was like, look here. I have some paperwork you need to sign. He needed to sign away his rights. He needed to say he was going to sign some paperwork so that she could have like a restraining order, all this other stuff. Child, he was like, I'll gladly sign away my rights. And so like she was right because he don't want nothing to do with Blue. Good. At least somebody who actually wants something to do with him, who actually wants to be a father, can be a father. Because, child, his wife don't know nothing about the situation. Like, child, it's too much going on here. So, the demands kept getting higher and higher. So, he felt some type of way about a restraining order. He was like, I don't want this to go to court and all this other stuff. She wanted all these different restraining orders. Child, we get down to every month, you're going to have to come up off some money over the course of a certain time. But you got to start off with like, I forgot what was it, $200 and some $1,000? The wet wall. You got to give an initial deposit of like $200 and some $1,000. And every month you got to send like $3,000 or something like that. I was like, wait a minute. And so he was like, I'm not doing anything, whatever. I was like, you done went off. When I tell y'all gonna put some respect on Darla's name. Darla just saved the co-op. I'm telling you, some kind of way she done saved the farm, all of this. He didn't agree to it. He done signed everything. Get up out of here, sir. Get up out of here. She had to set it off because don't nobody have time. Darla was like, this is my family. Like, first of all, before all the signage happened, had to go ahead, all the signing and all that stuff went down. She had to say, he is here. Ralph Angel is my husband, and he's here to protect me. This man over here, Hollywood, he is here to protect Ralph Angel from killing you. And Violet was like, I'm the wild card. You don't know what I'm going to do. I was like, wait a minute. It was so good, y'all. This episode was so good. Oh, I got emotional so many different times, and I got my entire life at the end of this. Like, it was so good, y'all. If you don't watch this show, how dare you? Anyway, hopefully y'all enjoyed this recap review of Queen Sugar. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know if I'm doing anything else today because I started so late and the most been popping off and they're working the mule out of me out of work. But anyway, y'all have a good weekend. Have a good one. Bye, y'all.